Can you guess the continent of these 35 countries just from their maps? Let's flex. Which continent is this country in? The United States of America is in North America. The closest point between North America and Asia is at the Bering Strait, where the United States and Russia are just 3.8 kilometers apart at their closest point. Which continent is this country in? France is in Europe. Because of its overseas territories, France shares its longest land border with Brazil, not with any of its European neighbors. Which continent is this country in? Japan is in Asia. In 2023, using a new digital survey, Japan counted 14,125 islands, more than double its earlier total of 6,852. Which continent is this country in? The United Kingdom is in Europe. The United Kingdom is separated from mainland Europe by the English Channel, which is only 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. Which continent is this country in? India is in Asia. India's southernmost point, Indira Point, in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, is closer to Indonesia than to the Indian mainland. Which continent is this country in? Italy is in Europe. Italy encloses two independent countries, San Marino and Vatican City, making it the only country with two enclaves. Which continent is this country in? China is in Asia. China spans 5 geographical time zones, yet the entire country follows a single official time. Which continent is this country in? Australia is in Oceania. Australia sits on a tectonic plate that is moving north towards Asia at about 7 centimeters per year. Which continent is this country in? Brazil is in South America. Brazil is the only country in the world through which both the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn pass. Which continent is this country in? Canada is in North America. Canada has the longest coastline in the world at over 243,000 kilometers, long enough to circle the Earth about 6 times. Which continent is this country in? Argentina is in South America. Argentina is named after the Latin word for silver, though the vast riches early explorers expected were found elsewhere. Which continent is this country in? Germany is in Europe. Over 50% of Germany's highways, known as the Autobahn, have no general speed limit, with an advised speed of 130 kilometers per hour. Which continent is this country in? Thailand is in Asia. Thailand means land of the free. The name was adopted in 1939 as it is the only Southeast Asian country never colonized by a European power. Which continent is this country in? Mexico is in North America. Mexico is home to the Great Pyramid of Cholula, the largest pyramid in the world by volume. It is so massive that it was once mistaken for a natural hill. Which continent is this country in? South Korea is in Asia. In 2010, South Korea completed the world's longest seawall at 33.9 kilometers, creating over 400 square kilometers of reclaimed land. Which continent is this country in? South Africa is in Africa. Cape Agulhas in South Africa is the southernmost tip of Africa and marks the divide between the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Which continent is this country in? New Zealand is in Oceania. New Zealand lies about 1,500 kilometers from Australia at its closest point, despite looking close on maps. Which continent is this country in? Algeria is in Africa. Algeria is Africa's largest country, yet about 90% of its people live along the northern Mediterranean coast, which covers around 10% of its land. Which continent is this country in? Greece is in Europe. Despite having over 6,000 islands and a coastline of over 13,000 kilometers, 80% of Greece is mountainous. Which continent is this country in? Indonesia is in Asia. The Wallace Line runs through Indonesia, with Asian wildlife like tigers and elephants on one side, and Australian marsupials and cockatoos on the other. Which continent is this country in? Tanzania is in Africa. Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania stands 5,895 meters tall and is the world's tallest freestanding mountain. Which continent is this country in? Saudi Arabia is in Asia. Saudi Arabia is home to Highway 10, the world's longest straight road, stretching 240 kilometers through the desert without a single curve. Which continent is this country in? Switzerland is in Europe. Switzerland has enough nuclear fallout shelters to house 114% of its population, and by law, every resident is guaranteed a spot. Which continent is this country in? Kenya is in Africa. The Great Rift Valley runs through Kenya and is a massive geological crack that will eventually split the continent in two. Which continent is this country in? Poland is in Europe. After World War II, Poland's borders shifted about 200 kilometers west, effectively sliding the country across Europe on the map. Which continent is this country in? Mongolia is in Asia. Mongolia is the world's least densely populated country, yet nearly half its population lives in the capital, Ulaanbaatar. Which continent is this country in? The Philippines is in Asia. The Puerto Princesa subterranean river in the Philippines is the world's longest navigable underground river, stretching about 8.2 kilometers. Which continent is this country in? Nigeria is in Africa. Nigeria is home to Zuma Rock, a massive monolith rising 725 meters above the surrounding plains near the capital, Abuja. Which continent is this country in? Cuba is in North America. Cuba lies just 150 kilometers from the United States, at its closest point across the Florida Strait. Which continent is this country in? Malaysia is in Asia. The Sarawak Chamber in Malaysia is the largest known cave chamber in the world and can fit about 40 Boeing 747s. Which continent is this country in? Bolivia is in South America. Though landlocked, Bolivia still maintains a navy in the hope of one day regaining a coastline. Which continent is this country in? Ethiopia is in Africa. Ethiopia is known as the Water Tower of Africa, as the Blue Nile, which supplies about 85% of the Nile's water, originates in its highlands. Which continent is this country in? Colombia is in South America. When the Andes reach Colombia, they split into 3 parallel mountain ranges, creating isolated valleys with distinct ecosystems. Which continent is this country in? The Democratic Republic of the Congo is in Africa. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is the second largest country in Africa, but has a tiny coastline on the Atlantic Ocean, only 37 kilometers long. Which continent is this country in? Papua New Guinea is in Oceania. Papua New Guinea in Oceania shares the world's second largest island, New Guinea, with Indonesia in Asia. Before we wrap up, here is an interesting fact about countries and continents. Some countries lie in more than one continent. Russia, Turkey, Egypt, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia are the main countries that span more than one continent. How many did you get right? Thanks for watching. Let's make our brains stronger, one quiz at a time. Stick around and try the next quiz on your screen. See you on the next adventure.